Now let's do our big one. Oh, I'm really excited. I put so much time into this, and here's the moment of truth. The largest tomato I've ever grown, and it weighs... Take a look at this ugly tomato. It's all slimy and shriveled and pretty moldy. It's been sitting in my fridge ever since I harvested it from my garden last September, but I'm actually really proud of it. When I first picked it, it was so beautiful, and it's actually the largest tomato I've ever grown in my life. Now, I've always loved growing a large garden. Usually in my garden, I have around 20 to 30 tomato plants of different varieties, and last summer I tried something brand new. I tried to grow the largest variety of tomato in the world. It's called Domingo, and some friends gave me 3 seeds, so I thought maybe I might have a chance of breaking my personal record. My personal record was under 2 pounds, so hopefully I could beat that. Now, I had 3 seeds last year that I started by wrapping in a wet paper towel until they started to germinate. And then after that, I filmed the progress of the plants growing step by step. Well, it's been a full 7 days, and as you can see, all 3 seeds are starting to germinate. There's a tiny root sticking out. It's time to transfer them from the wet paper towel, now that I know they're viable, to the potting soil. Each seed gets its own pot. I press that down about 1/4 of an inch, carefully place the seed in the soil, cover it back up. Then I'm going to water these in and place them in the greenhouse. So it's been 2 days since we placed the seeds in the pots, and the sprouts are just starting to emerge. This is exactly what I want to see. You'll see that it's making a U shape. The husk of the seed is still in the soil. You want to keep that moist and have the seed grow out of the husk. Soon, 2 leaves will emerge. Well, it's amazing how fast these plants grow. As you can see, overnight the leaves have spread out, and it's time to name our plants. The first one we're going to call BLT. And here's our second plant. We're going to call this one Pizza Sauce. And number 3 will be Ketchup. I'll continue to give updates so you can see our tomato plants growing. Let me know which plant you think will grow the biggest tomato, Pizza Sauce, Ketchup, or BLT. Well, it's been a few weeks, and as you can see, our tomato plants have really grown. Here's BLT, Pizza Sauce, and Ketchup. Initially, we had those 2 leaves, but now they're starting to grow additional leaves, and it's time to repot these. I'm actually going to bury the stems much deeper. I'm going to take off these leaves right here and turn this all into a root system. So in the new pots, these are going to be much shorter. Our tomato plants look happy. We're probably going to leave them in these pots until they're ready to move outdoors, but that will be a few more weeks. We'll check back then. So it's been a few weeks, and as you can see, our tomato plants are doing very well, but there's quite a bit of size comparison. Tomato 1, the BLT, is the smallest, then tomato 2, Pizza Sauce, is slightly bigger, and tomato 3, Ketchup, is doing very well. I'm going to start taking them outside for a few hours a day to get them used to the sunlight and ready to transplant into the garden. Well, today is a big day in our quest to grow a giant tomato. It's transplant day. It's May 28th, and that's about the latest. I want to plant my tomatoes outside where I live. The weather's unpredictable, and you could get a cold snap and kill them, so you don't want to put them out too early. I've been acclimating these for several weeks, taking them out in the sun. They've gotten slightly sunburned on the bottoms here, but they seem to be doing well. And it's amazing the size difference. Tomato 3, Ketchup, here is much larger than number 2, and number 1 is still pretty small. We're gonna see how they do when we transplant them outside, and here's the spot. So the first thing I need to do is space out our tomato plants, then we're gonna dig a big hole, amend the soil where the roots are, and set up our support. Here I have stock panel. This is really sturdy wire. These are 12 foot long, and I'm gonna do 2 of them for 3 plants. And once those are all secure, we'll place our tomatoes in the ground. Since Ketchup has the most potential, it's the biggest, I'm gonna put it right in the center, and I'm gonna dig down quite a ways. With the 3 holes dug, we can now pound the fence post to hold up the wire. With the fence support all up, we can now mix up our soil and plant the tomatoes. I've been composting this for the last year. These are leaves from last fall mixed with grass clippings and anything from the dinner table. This is really rich, high in organic matter, and we're gonna mix it in with the soil to help our plants. This is really exciting for me. We're gonna plant our tomatoes, starting with Ketchup number 3. It's the largest and I have the most hope in it. We'll pull off the tag so we know which one it is. Now the hole's pretty deep, and what I'm gonna do is actually pull off the leaves on the bottom. The stem, when it's buried, will turn into a root system, making a larger, healthier plant. So we'll just nip these off. take this out of the pot and then fill it with our soil. Now normally you don't want leaves too close to the ground. That will bring disease up from the ground to the leaves. I'm gonna let this get established, then do quite a bit of pruning, especially these lower leaves. But for now, we need the energy to go into the plant, so I'm not gonna cut it off yet. Well, it's been a lot of hard work. I'm dirty, sweaty, and I smell pretty bad, but we have our 3 tomato plants in the garden. There's a big size difference in the pots, but who knows, once they're in the ground, anything can happen. We're gonna start pruning them as they grow up here, training them on the support, letting them spread out, and then watching for the mega bloom. The mega bloom is the key to growing a giant tomato. It's really a couple tomatoes growing together, and I'm really curious which one of these 3 plants is gonna grow the best tomato. Well, this is sad. When I checked my tomatoes this morning, I discovered they were attacked by a wild animal. This was my best tomato, number 3, and something came along and chewed off the top. They've been outside for about a week, and I don't know if this one's gonna make it. We'll just let it grow and see if it recovers at all. So here's our tomato that was attacked by the deer. At one time, this was our biggest and strongest, but now it's really struggling to grow back. But it's doing pretty good, so it's behind. It hasn't put out flowers, but at least it has quite a few leaves and it's regrowing from that root system after the deer completely chopped off the top. And here's Ketchup, the one that got eaten by the deer. It was so stunted, but it's bouncing back. And look at this, we have a mega bloom. Hopefully this turns out to be a large tomato, but it does have some promise for such a rocky start. Well, here's my best tomato, and it's very large and still growing. It hasn't turned red yet, and it's growing in a C shape, growing together. I can't wait to see how big this tomato goes. This plant got eaten by a deer. It was pruned down to nothing, but it's making the largest tomato. This is by far the biggest tomato I've ever grown. Not bad for a first year of trying to grow these giant tomatoes. This thing is massive, and it's getting ripe, so we're gonna pull it off and weigh it. Believe it or not, this is the one we almost gave up on because the deer ate the plant. But it grew back bigger and better than ever, and it ended up being our largest tomato. We'll carefully cut off the stem. Look at that tomato. So I'll start with a regular tomato, place it on the scale. 1 pound, 8.6 ounces. So not bad for a garden tomato. Now let's do our big one. Oh, I'm really excited. I put so much time into this, and here's the moment of truth. The largest tomato I've ever grown, and it weighs 4 pounds, 3.6 ounces. So it's not a record breaker, but it's still pretty good for my first year. Now these videos take a whole year to film, and I can't wait to see if I can beat my personal record. Just a sneak peek, I got a package from a fellow YouTuber, and actually this is so special. If you look at this, this says 9.44. That's how big of a tomato that these seeds came from. These are all from Giants. This one is also from a Domingo, 8.22 pounds. 5.95 cross with 8.61, so we're dealing with some huge genetics. And that's because the largest tomato ever grown is not registered with the Guinness Book of World Records, but it was grown by some YouTubers with a channel called Organic Gardening, Homesteading, and Woodworking. And last year they grew the all-time world's heaviest tomato ever that was 17.15 pounds. Now these seeds are so special, they were all grown by a man who grows the world's largest tomatoes. If you want to get some of these seeds, you have to check out their channel and subscribe. They do giveaways. They also have a lot of great tips that I wish I knew last year. So you're going to have to wait to see how large of a tomato I grow, but I might give some updates along the way. So if you like these videos, leave a comment down below. And be sure, if you want to see how to grow large tomatoes, check out that other YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. This is different than what I usually post. Usually I show you how to catch mice, rats, squirrels, chipmunks, moles, voles, and gophers with trapping videos, but I also love doing different things, especially gardening. If you haven't subscribed, please consider clicking that button.